everybody. I hope you all can hear me. If you can't, please say so. But my name's Heather, and welcome to this edition of the Ubuntu Desktop Team Indaba. So with us, it's a very special edition because we're live in Prague. It's a rare chance that we all get to be in the same room, which is pretty awesome. Joined by some pretty key members from the release team. So we have Brian Murray here, Lukasz, and Seb. They've been around for a long time, and they're happy to help talk about like the process of releasing and what goes into the maintenance. And so I hope you all can learn something. Just a quick question though, people that are watching, can you let me know if you can hear me or else? Yeah, you can. Okay, great. Okay, well, Lukasz gave a great lightning talk the other day on kind of this very thing. So what an opportunity to just present a few slides here. Also thanks for letting me know that I'm audible. So here's some slides. I'm going to pass it off to Lukasz to kind of talk through them a bit. There you go.
Thank you, Heather. Hello, everyone. So I wanted to go through some very basics of Ubuntu here, because it seems like some things might seem obvious to us, like to developers of Ubuntu, but not so much to people that are users. And I think it's very important to know about the release process a little bit. What releases mean? What's the release cadence? What are archive pockets and components in Ubuntu? So this is what I'm going to talk about right now. So we'll start off by just presenting some things that you can actually read right now after the hour. But we have it pretty well documented on ubuntu.com. You can read about the release cycle. There's also written some about the pockets itself, but we'll just go through briefly about all of this. So most of you know that the version number of Ubuntu, it's not only the animal, it's not only lunar, a lobster. There's also a version number for every release. And this is basically the year dot the month of the release. So just by knowing the version number, you can have a good approximation of when to expect the new release or to know when the release actually happened. So we do releases, the main releases of Ubuntu every 6 months. This is how we work with Ubuntu. Like we have those 6-month cycles. So there's one always in April and one in October. So there's always 0, 4, and 10. Those are. Besides that, we also do point releases. This is a little bit. Some people also mistake that. So we do refresh ISOs for old LTSs, older LTSs, like for instance 2204, 2004. We do 2204.1, for instance. We do or 0.2. Those are, you always get the latest when you run Ubuntu and you upgrade your machine, you always get the latest updates. It's not that we only release it on point releases. Point releases are those moments where you want to refresh the installer media, like ISOs and images that you can use and download, so that you don't have to actually get all those updates from the internet every time you try to install Ubuntu from scratch, right? So it's just for that. And this also happens periodically. The first point release, I think, is after around 3 months usually, and then we have a cycle of every 6 months until 0.5, which is usually the last one. There are exceptions to that, but let's not talk about exceptions. Yeah, so another thing that I just wanted to bring up, like about Ubuntu development. So Ubuntu it's a lot. It's a lot of people working together and contributing to this big project. Anyone can contribute to Ubuntu in various ways. One of those ways would be, of course, uploading new packages or new versions of packages, bug fixes to Ubuntu, and this is controlled by basically by upload rights. those upload rights are being given present by the so-called DMB, Developer Membership Board. That's a community membership board that basically decides if someone has enough knowledge and if they're knowledgeable about the processes of Ubuntu to actually um, be able to upload. So we have a few different kind of upload rights. Um, so the main people that contribute to Ubuntu are, of course, Ubuntu core developers. This is the team that can upload to all of the Ubuntu packages. I presented here like a quick table. You can also see it in this link that I provided previously. But we divide Ubuntu packages right now into a few so-called components. Main and restricted are the ones that are we consider the most important ones, base packages. Those are the packages that are actually seeded, so installed by default on our images. So core devs have the power to upload there. The others, like Universe, Multiverse, those are more like available to everyone who wants to use them. And those are core devs, of course, can also do the same because they have all the powers. But so-called motus basically take care of those packages. That's masters of the universe. That's the name. It's also important to know that everyone can have, anyone on Launchpad can have their own PPA, so personal package archive. So anyone can upload packages to Launchpad and then ask friends to use it for various reasons. But it's important to know, as long as it's not in the official Ubuntu archive, so it's not being uploaded by someone that has core dev rights, it's not really it cannot be used in Ubuntu by default. We only take things that are in the Ubuntu archive. So that's one thing to remember. Now, I wanted to talk a little bit about how actual packages move around, but maybe I'll pass it over to Brian, since Brian is also very knowledgeable about what we do with and what happens with, especially with the Britain out packages infrastructure. So, Brian.
When a package is uploaded to Ubuntu, it first goes into the proposed pocket. And somebody mentioned there was some confusion about pockets in the comments. There is the proposed pocket, the release pocket, and the updates and the security pocket. So initially, something goes to the proposed pocket, and not everybody has packages from proposed installed. And then when it is in proposed, the package needs to build, its auto package tests are run, and if everything passes, then the package will be automatically promoted to the release pocket. This is during the development of the release. It's slightly different once the release has been released and we are dealing with a stable release update. In that case, it goes to a queue where it's reviewed by the stable release updates team. And if it meets the requirements for being a stable release update, in that it's a targeted bug fix, and we believe that there is little chance of regression, it will be accepted into proposed again. And then the package will be tested automatically and manually tested to verify that the bug is fixed, and some additional manual testing to verify that the core functionality of the application still exists. And at that point in time, once the bug fix is verified, the package can be released to the updates pocket. However, we also wait a 7-day period to give it plenty of aging, kind of like a fine wine, such that we know plenty of people have installed it and tested it. And then it's also possible for updates to end in the security pocket if it's fixing a CVE or addressing a security issue. And occasionally some package updates will be released to both updates and security. Okay.
Okay, all right. Yeah, very good, very good. Um, Seb, do you want to talk a little bit about from Ubuntu desktop? We're here for the Ubuntu desktop Indaba. Do you want to talk about how the desktop kind of plays a role in that?
Well, desktop it's one of the image, and as a team, we cares about its product. We do work with the release team to make sure everything we do end up with the right quality that migrate from the proposed pocket to the release pocket in time. And we do track on a daily basis the proposed migration page, which is a summary of the status of the package. And we have a version which is split by team, so it's make easy for us to just keep an eye on our own set and to ensure that we have the quality expected there. And one thing I wanted to add from the previous comments is not only propose is not used by everyone, but we usually recommend to not be running propose during develop cycles. And even for SRUs, it's good to opt in for testing one updates, but it could be well breaking, and it's for users, we do recommend to let all the tooling do the first pass of quality and let us ensure that the quality is there. And then it's migrating to updates or to the release pocket, and that's where it's ready for user consumptions, I would say. And I think that's everything for the desktop side.
So once the release has been released, how does the maintenance look? What does it look like to keep the packages stable and up to date and kind of push those to the users? Brian, you want to take that?
So as we previously talked about, packages will end up in propose to test that they're being fixed and that that they're actually fixing the issues that we want. And then for an LTS release, as Lukash mentioned, we do point releases of that. And that's so that somebody installing with the 22, if they were to have installed with 2204 today, there would be a whole bunch of updates that they need to install. Those are which contain bug fixes. And some of those are actually to the installer. So on a regular basis, we create new versions of the installation media, and that way less time is spent downloading packages. But additionally, there might be new drivers added to the kernel. So even an older LTS release like Ubuntu 18.04 would have new drivers available so that you could install it on newer hardware. I don't know why a desktop user would install 18.04 on newer hardware. It's probably more suitable for server installations, but that's worth noting.
Yeah. Okay. Seb?
Yeah. I can talk a bit about how we do updates and what lands in the updates. So from a desktop and other products perspective, we do watch incoming bugs on Launchpad, and we decide when something is important to fix. That's maybe we should do a stable update for it. So if you care about an issue or if you think something is important, first step is to report it. It's very nice if there is some steps we can follow to confirm the issue and maybe verify a fix. And patches are welcome because they help us on having an easier process as well. But first step, reporting the bug, then having steps to verify the fix. Then we do the upload. It's reviewed by the SRU team. And then we need people to do the verification to ensure that the fix is working as expected. There is no regression there. And everything is to the standard we expect. And once the verification is done and the aging of 1 week is done, the SRU team is moving to the updates pockets and then start reaching users. But at this point, we don't reach all the users at the same time because there's some phasing in the deployment, which means if there's some serious regression, we can stop the deployment before it's reaching everyone. And the phasing is based on some automatic data, if we see an increase of the reports in the error tracker, the phasing is going to be stopped until somebody goes there and check if that's a real regression, if that's just luck or no luck in the reporting and a bad week on the stats. But at least we make the conscious decision of saying that's we did check. It's not a regression and can keep being deployed to users.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks a lot, guys, for kind of telling us about the SRE process and how to keep things up to date. I know you'd kind of mentioned newer hardware, older OSs. Like that kind of brings me to a hardware question. What architectures are supported? Is it just AMD 64 and ARM 64, or what does the support matrix look like?
We support a lot of architectures. So basically, depends also on what images we take into consideration. So officially, we're building, and you can download from our download pages. You can get, first of all, like the AMD 64 images for desktop, server, and all the flavors as well. But we also have desktop images for the Raspberry Pi, for instance. We have pre-installed images for the Raspberry Pi. That's like just like very nice representation of the ARM 64 hardware for desktop that we can support. There's more architectures that we support, but currently not for desktop itself. We have server images for RISC-V, for instance. We have server images for ARM64, PowerPC 64, and we have also for S390X. But also server images. For desktop, it's mostly just AMD 64 right now, and the Raspberry Pi ones are ARM 64 in this case. We also have ARM HF, so the 32-bit versions for the Raspberry Pi. There's also a little bit of a difference because, for instance, we build packages, almost all of them. We build those packages for all the supported architectures in Ubuntu. We don't have like installer images, but you can, if you have a working a RISC-V system, a server system, you can basically have all the packages. And actually, what some people do is, if you have a RISC-V device, we only offer server images for RISC-V, but there's nothing standing in your way to install Ubuntu desktop and get a desktop. It works. That's what people do. It's just very slow because RISC-V is currently doesn't. It's not because of Ubuntu. It's because of the hardware still being on its way. So.
Yeah, very cool. Thanks. Yeah, so there's lots of different architectures, different ways of consuming Ubuntu. So that's exciting. You three have been here for a while. You've been doing this. I think we just heard at the closing plenary, at least 10 years, all of them. So you've seen many releases. What are some of the challenges that you would say are common across the releases? And that really kind of want to hear from each of you on that.
I think getting good testing is a challenge. Ubuntu supports a wide variety of hardware, and in an ideal world, people would reinstall the development release of Ubuntu on all their laptops and then tell us if there were issues. But even testing in virtual machines is useful, and finding issues with bugs or finding issues with the installation process, finding issues with the applications, and reporting issues that people find. Seb was talking previously about the phasing of updates. The phasing of updates is based on us receiving crash reports from users. If people aren't sending their crash reports in, then we won't know that there are problems, and then we can potentially release a bad version of a package out in the world. So I would say one of the challenges is just getting a wide variety of testing done, and exploratory testing too. I maybe I don't use Audacity, but if it's important to you, you should be testing that application and telling us if there are issues so that we're aware of them and we can help fix them.
I have to double what Brian said, because this is the biggest challenge. I think whenever we prepare a release, it's usually okay, so we start off at the beginning of a cycle. So once we release, let's say we released not recently 2210, and today we officially opened up the archive. So we opened it up to developers, and since, let's say, from today till next year, April, basically everyone is working on the release. But there is a period that we call the release week. So the week before the date where we want to release the new version of Ubuntu, everyone is working hard to create release candidate images. So the images, so those ISOs that you can download and then use to install your Ubuntu. We're working hard on getting that done, getting testing from users. And there's a lot of test cases. A lot of this is manual testing as well, because the exploratory testing actually shows the real issues. Since we cannot, it's hard also to just think about every case that can be broken. And this is the challenge if we don't get testing before release week. It's when we find an issue that's critical to users on release week. It's really hard for us to spin the wheels, find a fix quickly, react, and still be sure that we have enough time to test the new ones, the new versions, and be confident that what we have is actually release worthy. So we do have a beta milestone always before. I can't remember now how long it is, like around a month before.
6 weeks, I think.
6 weeks before the actual release. So I would like to request everyone to always keep your ears and eyes open.
I'm sorry, I was confused. That's feature freeze.
Okay.
The beta is 3 weeks before the final release.
3 weeks. Okay. Yeah, I'm also confused always. So 3 weeks, but there's always an announcement about that we have a beta testing incoming. There's on Discourse as well. So if someone sees that we are doing a beta, please help out, do some testing. The earlier we get the testing needed, things are still in the beta mode, but the earlier we find those critical issues, the more time we have to actually fix them before release. So
well, and we don't necessarily, you don't need to wait for the beta though either. Don't take what Lukasz is saying is, okay, go ahead and test at the beta, because I mentioned feature freeze, and that's 6 weeks before the release and a couple of weeks before the beta. At that point in time, all the features should be in Ubuntu, and that would also be a fantastic time to start testing. I wouldn't test the next release of Ubuntu now though, because we just started the development process for it.
Yes, we do have. I think it was mentioned by Brian or by Seb that we do have daily images of every development series that we create. Like for instance, I don't think we switched that on yet for Lunar, but soon we will. So we have like daily images being created that are basically for testing purposes. Just remember that before it's beta time or even past beta, there might be a lot of things either wrong or incomplete, or still we're working on features. It's just for people to be developing.
Yeah, right. There's a few other challenges I see that I want to add. Like most of the team is like developer working from home, and we have like often similar configuration and setups, and sometimes it's difficult for us to cover some of the things we don't do. Like we are not in a corporate like Kerberos Active Directory environment, for example, and that's the kind of stuff which are more difficult for us to test. And the same for hardware. Like most of us have like mostly Intel hardware and videos, so NVIDIA testing is sometimes of a challenge for us. And I would say like getting the variety we need in testing, like the different kind of setups, hardware, online providers, services, locals, like same, like it's difficult for an English or Frenchman maybe to test input methods in Japanese or Chinese or like other languages. So we do need the diversity of the community, and we do need to get the feedback from everyone to ensure we get the quality. And the earlier in the cycle, the better, because when it's just like 10 days before release, it's very difficult to find the expertise and the time to properly fix those issues. And I would say, like, in some cycles, the challenges are coming also from the fact that our cycles is defined in advance. It's 6 months. We have a release date, but we try to find a good balance between keeping the current version and the best of upstream world and keeping the stability, but which means we don't control the schedule. Like sometimes if we decide to go with a new version of an upstream project and it's getting late or delayed or like it's getting complex and buggy, it's very difficult to find a good balance between including the new and nice things which are coming from the ecosystem and keeping the stability we want for the new Ubuntu releases. So that's always a challenge as well.
I just want to add one thing to that, and that's like what Brian said about filing bugs. I know that it can be really intimidating if you are kind of new to the community or new to filing bugs. It seems like, oh, I'm going to put in an hour of my time to file a good quality bug, and I don't even know if there's somebody behind it. But there are, and it really helps if you already find a bug that happens to affect you as well, and you click the little button on Launchpad that says this affects me too. That has a valuable impact. The more visible an issue is, the more rapidly we can allocate resources. So yeah, filing bugs is it's a bit daunting and scary at first, but incredibly worth it. And there's real people behind that. So consider filing a bug if you find them. So I know, Lukasz, you'd kind of mentioned about how, we have point releases, like 5 generally point releases. Is that for every release? Or is that, what's the difference between LTS releases and not LTS releases? Are they supported for the same amount of time? What are the differences there between LTS and non-LTS releases?
Yeah, so basically every 2 years in April, we release a so-called LTS, which means basically long-term support. Normal Ubuntu releases are supported for just a limited amount of time. For point releases, that's 5 years. For LTS, it's 5 years of base support, and there's ESM that adds up to that. But basically, those 5 years of long-term support for every 2 years. So those are those releases that we consider recommendable, and we try to keep them very stable. So we always consider shiny new things for the interim releases. That's how we call them, interim releases. But for the every 2 years, we try to stabilize what we were working on in the previous ones, stabilize that, get the quality right, and then release an LTS release that has a longer support span. So for those, we do point releases, those 5 point releases, because we actually expect people to use them longer. This is why we still, for instance, you can still use 2004. Like, we of course recommend using 2204 because that's the latest, and I think there's no reason to stick to the old one. I think we try to make sure that we have no visible huge regressions between or reasons to say, like, okay, so I have to stick with the old one. Like, we try to make sure that everyone can upgrade. This is why people get upgrade prompts as well, from one LTS to another. So I would say this is the biggest difference. Brian, do you want to add something?
Also, with LTS releases, with the interim releases, we are making incremental steps to make the long-term support release somewhat different, perhaps. So moving to a new installer is something that might happen in the interim releases, and then it becomes finalized in a long-term support release. Yeah, I think that's, and also in the development process, during the 6-month development process for a long-term support release, we are focused on stability. We're not going to be getting the latest crazy version of GCC or something, and instead are focused on that stability because it's going to be supported for a long period of time, and it's our shining product.
All right, thanks. I think we have a good idea of like the various releases, how they're made, how they're maintained. I know we kind of talked about this earlier. What's the best way for community members to participate? Brian, you mentioned ISO testing. That's really useful. Bug filing. Is there anything any of you want to add to ways that community members at all levels can participate?
I saw somebody mentioning learning another language or working on translations, and I think that's a very valuable thing too, because our goal is to make Ubuntu, well, Ubuntu is freely available to anybody, anywhere around the world. And it would be much better if we had high quality translations available so that people can use it in their own language.
Something which is useful also is working on the documentation. We have a wiki and we have like content and discourse and Ask Ubuntu, and we have plenty of space online where we try to document what we are doing and like explain things. But it's sometimes difficult for us with a small team to keep up with everything which is changing, and it's quite challenging to keep the content up to date. And that's something which we would like welcome to community help with, because it's like easy to engage with us, and it's something anybody could be doing. I think like making sure our documentation reflects the current state of the software and maybe improve like the wording or like include screenshot or trying to guide more the users toward having a easier use of the software is always welcome, I think.
Those are all really, really great places where you can help. One thing that's more technical, of course, but of course we also welcome people like developers that are a little bit more, let's say, on the technical level, to actually try contributing bug fixes as well. Sometimes it's just a matter of you see a bug, you know that maybe a fix is available somewhere, or you have a good idea how to fix it. Then you can always prepare a bug fix for it. There might be some knowledge required but you don't even have to know packaging. You can just say, okay, I have a fix here of the code. Now you could also ask for sponsorship so that someone that has upload rights can pick up those changes, help you in this whole process of getting this patch released for Ubuntu. And then maybe at one moment actually applying for upload rights. Anyone can apply, and as we do require some demonstrated knowledge of packaging, for instance, and Ubuntu processes, and some documented cases where actual packages have been sponsored for you. But it's something that you can just do with time, with experience. We're now in the middle of revamping the patch piloting program, so that people with upload rights will again have shifts where they will only spend time doing exactly that. So sponsoring things for people, sponsoring things for others that want to have a fix for an issue and just want to get it into Ubuntu but don't have the upload rights. Probably this is still in the works, but this will be happening. Right now, it's anyway happening, but in a less organized way. We want to organize it so that people know that you can go to IRC, ping the current patch pilot to get a response, to get advice, to get mentoring even, or just helping out in getting one of your bug fixes uploaded.
A quick one I want to add, which I did touch on earlier, is stable update verifications, because sometimes we get bug reports, and I'm always happy to review and sponsor patches, but some of the verification needs access to like specific setups or specific hardware, and it's not possible for our team to test the fix. Even if you can help like pushing the fix, we can't do the verification. And it's quite frustrating to see that we went through all those steps to get the patch uploaded, reviewed, and proposed, and that it's stuck there, not reaching users, and like creating more work for the team because we just can't do the verification with our own hardware or developers. And I think that's we would welcome more people to use writing the test cases, but also doing the verifications.
And to expand on what Seb said, installation testing is a little bit more complicated because you have to set up a virtual machine, download the image, do the install. Whereas SRU verification is something you can do already as an Ubuntu user. If you're running Focal, we're just doing SRUs for Focal. So install the package, look and see what's available for testing and propose, test that package and make sure that it's working, or test and verify that the bug is fixed. I think that's a pretty, it's not as complicated as other ways of participating.
Yeah, and you guys mentioned, seeking, sponsorship of uploads, or so where would a community member look for people that could help sponsor, or if they get stuck or need some clarification, where should a user look for assistance in all of this?
We need to refresh the documentation for that, because there was some procedures outlined on the wiki pages, but we identified this week that they might not be completely up to date. But there are two places that are working for sure. Going on IRC on Libera, we have a Ubuntu Devel channel, which is like this place for developers, for Ubuntu developers to gather. It's not a support channel. It's a channel that only people that actually develop Ubuntu sit around. And this is the right place to jump in and maybe poke around, ask if someone has the powers to sponsor. There's also a Motu channel. That's also a very nice place to go if you have some fixes for the Motu, for universe packages, so those that are not official. Or you want to have a new package sponsored for Ubuntu, because that's also like someone can have a nice project that they want to just put into Ubuntu, right? So the Motu channel is nice. People from the Motu team will try to help out with getting this new package uploaded. There are some additional steps that need to happen for it to actually appear in Ubuntu, because an archive admin needs to review that. But that's a completely new box of toys. Yep.
And if you're interested in testing, whether that be testing of packages in proposed or ISO testing, and are looking for help with that, the Ubuntu Quality channel also on Libera I'm there. So I'll be happy to answer any questions. And if you need some guidance of how to get involved in testing, we'll be happy to help you out.
A small note for sponsoring as well on Launchpad. Tag your bugs as Ubuntu-sponsors, so they are showing up in the sponsoring queue.
Yeah, so for those that don't know, the sponsoring queue is exactly what Seb said. So all the bugs that are appropriately subscribed appear on a dashboard. We call it the sponsorship queue, and people that have upload rights try to look at that dashboard and act on those, like check if the bugs that have been marked as requiring sponsorship, if the changes are correct, if they're good to go. If yes, they can help out and sponsor the upload for people that don't have upload rights. The queue is sometimes getting quite big, but this is why the patch piloting program is being resurrected. We had that in the past, then somehow the calendar events got confused and we just stopped doing it. Now it will be happening once again, so hopefully the queue will be 0 and everyone will be happy with a quick reaction from sponsors, right?
I'm unsure now if I said tag before, but it's subscribing Ubuntu sponsor to the bug.
Yeah, okay. That's very good. Now people kind of know where they can go to make sure they can participate in any way that they like. I know that we've kind of asked this before of other guests and other Indabas, but it's a community favorite question. Where do the code names come from? And since we just had a release, is there a new dev series open? Any one of you?
So the release names, they come from Mark, our self-appointed benevolent dictator for life, Sabdov. So every time we have a release that's being released, we are then waiting for news from Mark with a new animal and adjective. Those are always then the letters are subsequent letters of the alphabet, and once we reach the end, we just cycle through. It's yeah, maybe we should have started using numbers or something. I don't know, but
What's the code name for 2304?
it's Lunar Lobster. The new release is Lunar Lobster. So if someone likes lobsters, then a very tasty release. Someone likes the moon, it's also the release for you.
So is the archive open now?
Yes, it is open. I think the announcement is yet to come, but basically developers can start their uploads. So perfect.
But this time it was crowdsourced, right?
Yes, this release or the name Lunar Lobster was actually crowdsourced by Mark this time. There were like a list of 24 adjectives which Canonical employees picked from, and then there was also a list of 24 animals which again Canonical employees cheered loudly for. I was disappointed. I was really hoping for a llama, but the crowd won, and it's a lobster.
Well, maybe in 13 years, you can have your llama. Speaking of lunar lobster, do you guys, there was a planning sprint last week. So as mentioned in the chat, like some people have been here for quite a while, still some time to go at the summit. Are there any spoilers that you can give folks as to what to expect maybe in this next release, or maybe it's too soon? I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, from a desktop perspective, I think that's the cycle where we will switch to the new installer based on Ubiquiti. From our testing last cycle, it feels solid and at the point where it could be default. So I expect we will start making the default image the new installer in the next weeks. And otherwise, we target GNOME 44. We want to stay like on the latest version, just keep up with everything upstream, which is happening upstream. So new version of GNOME coming, and I think that's the highlight from the desktop side, at least.
From our side, that would be we're trying to improve the let's say the net install story a little bit for server. Since this is the place where we want to shine a bit more, so there's work happening there, and of course we want to enable a little bit more RISC-V platforms. So the RISC-V ecosystem is still moving quite fast, but we're trying to get as many of those new shiny devices supported by Ubuntu as possible.
Okay. If there are any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. And while you think of some questions to put in there, I wanted to invite Ken to come and give us a little update on Steam. Many of you may know Ken Van Dyne, one of the leaders of the desktop team, and we have here Ken.
All right. Yeah, as we were talking about on the chat, everybody's been talking a lot about the ability to choose which version of Mesa. A little bit of detail behind that. The idea is often when people install Ubuntu and they're a Linux gamer and they want to play games, they find on the Steam forums or on Ask Ubuntu or various websites points them to a few different PPAs. OIBOF is very popular. There's Kissack Fresh. So the OIBOF one is like super bleeding edge versions of Mesa. It's built almost every day. And users have to enable that PPA to get those things. And then those get installed on the system. So your entire system's exposed to these really bleeding edge versions of Mesa. There's Kissack Fresh, which is also very popular. It's very new, but it's generally a point release plus a few backports. And there's Kissack Turtle, which is, I think, just the latest point release, no backports. It's a little bit slower moving. But these are all very popular PPAs. So what we've done is we've created a content snap that Steam will use with tracks. So a user can just choose which track they want to get Mesa and their graphics drivers from. So they can choose their risk level. Do you want that absolutely latest everyday version of Mesa? You can easily get that. And then Steam as a snap just consumes that. We've done the work for that. The content snaps are up for Mesa. Steam is not using it yet. We've been working on that, but we've been a little busy the last couple of weeks here in Prague. So I would imagine that we'll be hitting the Snap Store soon, shortly after the summit. Some other things we're doing related to gaming, the things we've been focusing on while building that team up has been, looking for the places where we can have the broadest impact. And Steam is obviously the first choice there because that's where a tremendous number of people get their games from, right? And there's a lot of traction there right now. So we've been putting a lot of effort into improving that experience so users can get those things up and running quickly without tainting their system with things that could make their desktop experience less stable. Maybe your gaming experience becomes less stable, but GNOME Shell doesn't crash. Or you don't accidentally install a Bitcoin miner because somebody uploaded one of these things to that PPA under some innocent name. You just don't know what you're getting in that sort of a scenario. So this was a good place to start. We're also investing in improving some other things in the Snap area that people will be hearing about soon related to gaming. And aside from that, we're kind of building up the roadmap for things we want to work on for improving the gaming experience. Like I mentioned on the chat, we have hired a team now. We have 3 engineers dedicated to gaming experience on the desktop team. We are very much committed to this. We have a panel on, it's Monday, right? The gaming panel? Yeah. Tuesday at the summit, there's going to be a panel where a few of us will be on that, and we're going to be talking to the audience participants in the summit, trying to get some ideas. Give us your ideas on things that you would like to see us working on. We have some capacity to do those things, and we're already talking to some partners and some big names in the industry, looking for things that we can work on, and we've got some ideas there. But we really want to hear from the users as well. So we've left some space on our roadmap to build up that roadmap based on what you guys want to see. So let us know.
Cool. Well, I want to just at a high level say that, Ubuntu is the community. So thank you everybody for paying attention to Ubuntu, using it, promoting open source, testing, filing bugs, giving us your feedback. We're here to make a wonderful operating system. And it couldn't happen without everybody on the panel, but as well as everybody that's out there using it. So I feel really lucky to be part of this, kind of open source software movement. And so thanks everybody for, watching today, but also all of your efforts, and everything that you do with Ubuntu. So I think, we're pretty much out of time, but if you guys have any final questions, put them in the chat. Otherwise, is there any final comments or ask of the community that anybody has? Any final piece to say?
Anybody out there who's going to be at the summit, make sure you come introduce yourselves to us. We'd love to meet you.
And I just wanted to also thank the community, everyone that's involved in Ubuntu, all the flavors that are working, because the last 2 releases that we had, I could feel that this is just like the community is just great. Like without the help of all the testers that we had, like all of the testers, all the people that were on site, so to say, like waiting, all hands into the issues that we were encountering, like helping us with verifying the fixes that we provided, doing the ISO testing of all the flavors on different configurations, checking if NVIDIA works, things like that. Without the community, Ubuntu is the community. There's just that. Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks again, everybody, for watching. I think we'll leave it here. I hope you all found this useful, and I hope you learned something about the release process, all the effort that goes into it, and we really appreciate your time, and hope to see some of you at the summit next week. So, all right. Thanks. Bye.